Most people right now are wishing a housing market crash would happen so that home prices would come down and then they could buy a house. Now, I don't think that people want bad things to happen to anyone, but if you remember what happened in 2008, not just to housing prices, but to everything, you might think twice about this wish. Because if this happens, the economy could be worse off than the crash itself. I hear from so many people that really believe a housing market crash is coming, and some are waiting for it to happen before they buy a home. They feel that home prices are too high, and this is what has to happen for home prices to come down. And I completely understand the feeling that home prices are too high. I mean, honestly, I have seen homes sell for crazy high prices, like I would never pay that much for a house kind of price. And over the past year, with interest rates higher than they've been in a long time, this is making homes even more expensive. And many feel that the only way that home prices are going to come down is via a crash. But there are only a few ways that a crash can actually happen. But before we get into that, let's just understand what a crash actually means. This would be a rapid decrease in price over a short period of time. And this does not have to happen everywhere. It could happen in various places at different times. But most still remember 2008, and this is what they picture as a crash. We could see a crash if we have a big economic downturn or a recession, meaning that a lot of people would lose their jobs. And without a job, you can't buy a house. So that would not be good. Now, with this economic downturn, you would also have decreased consumer confidence and decreased economic growth, because this would mean a lot of layoffs for people in jobs like construction, lending, hospitality, and anything having to do with spending that is not a necessity. And because of this, businesses would begin to struggle, and some might even close their doors. And those companies that manufacture anything to do with homes, like building materials, furniture, or appliances, those companies would all slow down, and you would see big layoffs there too. Here in Arizona, we saw this in a big way in 2008 because much of our employment base was construction and hospitality. Fortunately for Arizona, our whole job landscape has changed over the last few years, with new businesses and industries coming into Arizona because of our friendlier business practices. But it doesn't negate the fact that although an economic downturn might bring home prices down, it also decreases the number of people that can actually qualify to buy a home and puts a lot of pressure on people who have lost their jobs. I remember 2008, and the number of people that lost their jobs or their mortgages shot up like a rocket after their adjustable rate mortgage adjusted, and they just couldn't sustain it any longer and let their house go back to the bank. It was a very sad time. Speaking of that, we could also see a crash due to a mortgage crisis. And this is what happened in 2008. We had banks willing to lend to people on stated income loans, meaning that the person walked into the bank and stated what they made. They didn't have to prove it. And many of those people were getting it on an adjustable rate mortgage, where it was locked for anywhere between 3 to 5 years. And then after that time, it adjusted. And not only that, during that 3 to 5 years, all they were paying was their interest, not the principal. So when the market crashed and those loans adjusted, their payments went through the roof. Then mixed in with that, you had all the subprime mortgages. And these were mortgages that were given to people with less than stellar credit. The number of people that got loans like this it was a lot. And then it all came crashing down. I'm going to show you a little bit more about that one in just a bit as it compares from now to 2008. Now, you could also have an oversupply of inventory. Now, here's the thing with this one. This is very location specific. It doesn't necessarily have to happen all across the US, but it's important for us to look nationwide and then narrow down. But the reality is if you have a sudden increase in the number of homes for sale, it could push home prices down. But right now, according to Redfin, we have 1.7 million active listings on the market nationwide. And just 5 years ago, we had 2.3 million listings on the market. So right now, we have 600,000 less homes to sell. So currently overall, nationwide, our inventory is still considered low. Now, I know many are probably saying,
but I keep hearing about an increase in the inventory.
And that's true, but nationally, we still are historically low. Again, I'm going to get to some specific Arizona numbers in just a little bit. Now, we could also see a crash due to high interest rates. See, these interest rates that we're seeing today are not the highest interest rates that we've ever seen, like in the 18% range. However, the interest rates we've seen over the past year and a half are drastically higher than most of the interest rates we've seen since about 2001. And this increase in interest rate on top of the already high prices of the home have just made homes that much more expensive. In turn, it has decreased our demand pretty significantly. And many feel that this would make a big enough impact on our overall home prices, but it just hasn't done what most have hoped. So let's take a look at what happened in 2008, because I still see people comparing today to 2008. And they are still saying a crash is coming, and it's not. I know we already talked about this just a little bit, but the real reason that the housing market crashed in 2008 was due to subprime mortgages. You can see from this chart what people's credit looked like when they were given loans back then versus now. The blue portion of this graph shows everyone with a credit score higher than 760. Well, back in 2003 to 2009, this was not the majority. That was all the subprime lending, which is not happening today, as you can see. And when it comes to adjustable rate mortgages, there are 2.5 million ARMs, which accounts for about 8% of all active mortgages right now. And by the way, this is the lowest on record. In 2007, there were 13.1 million ARMs, which represented about 36% of all the mortgages. And more than 80% of any of the ARMs that are out there today are operating under a fixed rate for anywhere between 7 to 10 years, rather than the 3 to 5 years that most people were getting back before the financial crisis. And as of Q1 in 2024, the overall mortgage delinquency rate in the United States was 3.2%, which was below the pre-pandemic average at 3.5%. So how does the Phoenix market stack up in regards to all of this? Let's take a look. So as you can see, I'm showing you all these lines because this is what we've been looking at over the past few years. This right here is 2020. You can kind of see that dip when we got into COVID, kind of that shoot up, and then that drastic kind of drop right here. And this is where we sat 2020, 2021. This is 2021, 22. This right here, everyone goes, oh my gosh, look at that significant increase in inventory. We have to remember what this was is our interest rates started to rise, and a lot of the new home construction that was keeping their homes off of the MLS put them into MLS. So we had this huge dump of inventory that came into MLS. And that's what this massive inventory increase is right here. But again, here is 2024. We can kind of see we're just kind of hovering, not as high as we were in 2022. But here's where I want to show you. This is 2007, 2008, 2009. We did have a drop right here. But this is where our normal I shouldn't say normal. This is what 2007 and 2008 looked like when it comes to inventory. We were at 57,000 listings. Right now, we're at 18. Now, the year that, and in some of my other videos, the year that we are running the closest to right now is 2014 and 2015. You can kind of see where our inventory is in relation to those 2 years. Now, the biggest difference between those 2 years and what we have right now is interest rates. The interest rates were a lot lower in 2014 and 2015. But again, we still had more inventory then than we have now. So this is how Phoenix looks as a whole when it just comes to active inventory on the market. So the next thing that everyone always talks about are foreclosures. They feel like this wave of foreclosures is going to come because interest rates are high and people aren't going to keep their houses, and that's going to make home prices crash. Well, here are our foreclosures in the Phoenix area. This is 2014 right here, all the way to now. Here we are, all the way down here. So there were 17 homes that actually reverted to the beneficiary in June and 21 that sold to a third party. This is 2020 right here. This is before COVID. You can see we had a lot more even then, but now this is where it gets really drastic. So here's 2007 and 2008. This is a big, big difference. This is what we saw 2007, 2008. Let me put 2006 in there just so you can see kind of that ramp up. That is a massive difference. We are nowhere, you can barely see the numbers here. It's a massive difference. So do we have a lot of foreclosures? No. In fact, we are not even close to where we were pre-pandemic. Now, this takes us into the contract ratio, and I always like to look at this one because this takes a look at supply and demand and how quickly homes are actually being turned over, meaning how quickly are homes actually being sold. Because this will tell us kind of the speed of our market and how much are we in a hot seller's market or are we in a buyer's market? Kind of where are we? There is no seasonality to this chart. That we've removed all the seasonality here. So this is actual in real time. So as it stands right now, we're sitting at about a 43 when it comes to the contract ratio, which isn't the best that we've ever been. 42. But this is what you have to look at. If we start in the green, we start to trend down. Again, start in the green, we start to trend down. Even in this year where we were crazy, start in the green, we start to trend down. Here's normal years. Start in those green months and we start to trend down. This is normal for this time of year. Again, we just don't have the same amount of homes on the market to sell. We don't have the demand that we had before. That's what was pushing everything so high. So when our seasonality kind of comes out of this market, that's going to be really telling. Now, the other thing that I always look at, because just as I was saying before, you look at it nationally and then drill down. So if we look at Phoenix as a whole, that's great, but now you have to drill down into the city. This is going to show you what the Cromford Market Index looks like in the top 17 cities here in the Phoenix area. And as you can see, we've got a lot of red arrows down. There's one. Scottsdale has an arrow up. We gained 6 points here. But here's what you need to know. If you haven't watched my channel before, this is how you know where you are, buyer's, seller's market. Anything over 110 and you are in a seller's market, between 110 and 90, you're in a balanced market. Anything below 90 and you are in a buyer's market. So you can see we still have 9 cities that are in a seller's market. We've got 2 cities, Peoria and Paradise Valley, that are in a balanced market. And then we've got these cities here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cities right here that are in an actual buyer's market. Now, the big thing to know about these buyer's market cities, Cave Creek, putting that one aside, and I'll tell you why Cave Creek is sitting here in just a second. But Surprise, Queen Creek, Maricopa, Buckeye, there's a lot of new construction. So resale is competing with new construction, and that always makes things go a little wonky when it comes to your overall pricing because you're competing with new home construction, which any buyer that can go into new home construction, especially now when the buyers are offering incentives for rate buy downs and things like that, they will go into new construction over the resale home. Cave Creek is a very seasonal market. We've got a big chunk of Cave Creek that has second homes or seasonal residents that live there. So it's not abnormal to see Cave Creek kind of fluctuate down a little bit in our summer months. So that's how the Phoenix market is looking overall today when it comes to supply, demand, overall inventory, and what our foreclosures look like. Now, here's the next big thing that everyone is kind of talking about, and that is the next Fed meeting. And many out there are saying that the Fed is probably going to be leaning towards doing an actual rate cut in September. Am I saying that that's happening? I'm not, but that is what a lot of people are out there saying. They're saying that they're starting to lean into a potential cut coming soon. So if the Fed actually does decide to make a rate cut on the Fed funds rate, what do you think is going to happen to home prices? Well, with the limited inventory that we have, we will very likely see home prices begin to rise. What does that mean? It means that we've got people waiting on the sidelines, just waiting for the interest rates to come down or waiting for home prices to come down, whichever comes first. So if the first thing that starts to happen is interest rates start to come down, they're going to get back in the market. That's going to heat our market back up and prices are going to start to increase again. Are they going to increase at the same rate that they did before? No. But I do think that we will continue to see kind of a steady increase in the overall home prices. And this is why most analysts are predicting the exact same thing. And this is why they really feel that we are going to see home prices continue to rise, although just slightly. No, when I say interest rates are going to come down, we are not going to see the 2s and 3s again, not for a long time at least. This could also allow those people that feel just stuck in their house, those golden handcuffs that everyone's been talking about, because they have such a low interest rate, but they've wanted to sell, they've wanted to move because of their life changes. This potentially could let them open that up. They could feel a little bit more flexibility in actually putting their house on the market and buying another one without having that high interest rate close to 8. Now, we are always going to have those people that have to move because of major life events. They're getting married, they're having a baby, they're downsizing, they've gotten a job and they've got to transfer. So they have to sell their home to move. But if we are able to get the interest rates down, even in the low 6s, more people will be motivated to move, which will increase our demand. But with more people also willing to sell their house, we will likely have more inventory. Will that give us enough inventory to meet the demand? I don't think so, but there will be more movement in the market. If you want to see more about the housing market in the Phoenix area, make sure you take a look at this video. As always, I thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.